Hello, I am Dr. Ajay Naik, cardiac electrophysiologist. I am director for Arrhythmia and Heart Failure Division at Care Institute of Medical Sciences, SIMS Hospital, Ahmedabad. Today I will be talking about atrial rhythms and supraventricular arrhythmias in this ISC symposium. Electrocardiogram, as we all know, is a painless, inexpensive, non-invasive method to diagnose the cardiac rhythm and the presence of a variety of heart diseases and cardiac conditions. It is a testimony to its utility that its unique role in clinical practice has stood the test of time more than a century since its invention. Standard rhythm is what we call the sinus rhythm, where the atrial activity is coming from the sinus node. The P wave is positive in inferior leads 2, 3 and AVF and positive in 1 and AVL. The activation of the atrium is from superior to inferior direction. That is why the P waves are positive in inferior leads, and from the right to left, hence the P waves are positive from in 1 and AVL. Following the P wave after a finite PR interval is the QRS complex. Each P wave is followed by a QRS complex. So there is 1:1 AV conduction. The normal sinus rhythm rate is between 60 to 100 beats per minute. There can be normal variation of the rhythm. The heart rate can change up to 10 to 20 beats per minute, and this is commonly due to respiratory variation. This is physiological and this is known as sinus arrhythmia. It is more commonly seen in children, but it could be seen in adults also. Sinus tachycardia is when the heart rate is more than 100 beats per minute and the sinus node has accelerated beyond the normal range. It could be again normal, it is physiological when a person exercises. It could be due to emotional or physical stress. It could also occur in presence of fever. Other causes of sinus tachycardia could be in presence of ischemia, myocardial infarction, heart failure, and some unusual causes which you need to be aware of. For example, this ECG shows sinus tachycardia and an unusual pattern. There is an S wave in lead 1 and Q waves in lead 3, T inversion in lead 3. This is an ECG recorded for a 24-year-old lady recently delivered being treated for non-resolving pneumonia. Looking at the entire clinical scenario, you have to have a high suspicion for pulmonary embolism. Just like sinus tachycardia relates to fast heart rates more than 100 beats per minute with sinus node as the mechanism, sinus bradycardia occurs when the heart rate falls below 60 beats per minute, or more technically less than 50 beats per minute. There are normal P waves preceding each QRS complex, so there is 1:1 AV conduction. If the rates are less than 40 beats per minute, you have to consider the possibility of sinoatrial block from the sinus node to its activation into the atrium. Causes of sinus bradycardia could be perfectly innocuous, like an increased vagal tone as in athletes. It could be more dangerous forms like increased intracranial pressure. It could occur in presence of hypothyroidism, hypothermia, hyperkalemia, in presence of ischemia and infarction, in presence of ongoing drugs, which is one of the commonest reasons for sinus bradycardia, in case of other problems like Cheyne-Stokes respirations. This is an example of a patient, 60-year-old gentleman, hypertensive on amlodipine and beta blocker. The patient has sinus bradycardia, which is probably related to the beta blockers what the patient is on. There could be additional underlying conduction system disease also, which the beta blockers are now aggravating. Once you take the beta blockers off, the sinus rate, normal sinus rate may resume. Sinoatrial block is defined as impedance in transmission of impulse from the sinus node into the atrium. There are 3 degrees. In first degree sinoatrial block, there is just prolongation of conduction from the sinus node into the atrium, which delays the atrial depolarization. Second degree is when there is intermittent conduction. Type 1 is progressive prolongation, like in Wenckebach, which is seen in the AV node level. The same kind of Wenckebach pattern may be observed in the sinoatrial node level. Type 2 when there is sudden failure or high degree block between the sinus node and the atrial depolarization. This could be 2:1, 3:1 or higher. And third degree sinoatrial block is when there is no conduction between the sinus node into the atrium. This cartoon gives an idea of sinoatrial block. The top line shows normal impulse, the sinus impulse gives rise to the atrial depolarization P wave, which is followed by the QRS complex. In first degree SA block, there is a delay between the sinus impulse to the atrial depolarization, the P wave, but this cannot be discerned on your routine ECG, which is recorded from the surface. This can be inferred only on intracardiac study by recording the electrograms. Second degree SA block is what can be inferred from the surface electrocardiogram. Second degree SA block could occur due to prolongation of conduction, progressive prolongation of conduction, like in the Wenckebach pattern. The sinus impulse and the P waves which are produced by it are progressively delayed till such time a P wave is dropped, or it could be unpredictable dropping of the P wave, which is seen in the middle two lines. Third degree SA block is when the sinus impulse cannot depolarize the atrium. There is complete block between the sinus node and the atrium, and what you see here is escape rhythm coming from the junctional region and retrograde P wave, which gives rise to inverted P waves which depolarize the atrium retrogradely. These are examples of sinoatrial block. The sinus rhythm is continuing in the initial part of in the left half of the panel, and there is unpredictable dropping of a P wave and consequently the QRS complex. After the pause, the sinus impulse is able to depolarize the atrium again, and normal sinus rhythm is going on. This ladder diagram shows what a sinoatrial block looks like on intracardiac recording. The top panel shows sinus rhythm with a pause in between where there is no P or QRS complex. When you do intracardiac electrograms, you will be able to infer what is happening between the sinus node and the atrium. There is progressively prolongation of conduction time between the sinus node and the atrium till such time there is a dropping of the P wave, which gives rise to the pause. So this is an example of second degree SA block of the Wenckebach pattern. Sinus pauses could be are unpredictable, and this is again representative of sinus node disease. This is third degree SA block, or it could be sinus arrest if the pause is extremely long. Sinus node disease may also be seen transiently in presence of ischemia or infarction, typically inferior wall myocardial infarction. This is an example of a 40-year-old gentleman having chest pain. There is bradycardia. No P waves are seen preceding the QRS complex. In fact, P waves may be seen after the QRS complex, which are inverted in the inferior leads. This is junctional rhythm with retrograde atrial activity, retrograde atrial activation, and there is ST elevation in the inferior leads. This patient is having inferior wall myocardial infarction. Typically in these patients, this is a transient phenomenon, and generally the sinus node resumes normal activity once the ischemia is relieved or over a period of time. This ECG shows sinus arrest. There is absolutely very slow activity of the sinus node, and this is followed by junctional escape rhythm. The right half of the panel shows dual chamber pacemaker activity. In fact, this ECG is recorded while the pacemaker is being checked, and temporary withholding of the pacemaker function is done to see the underlying rhythm. So this patient has sinus arrest, junctional escape rhythm. Atrial activity could arise from foci which are different or differently placed, or from places which are away from the normal sinus node. This ECG shows an ectopic atrial rhythm. This can be inferred by the fact that the P waves are preceding QRS complex. There is 1:1 AV conduction, but the P wave morphology is not like that of a sinus node P wave. The sinus node P wave, like I had explained earlier, is positive in inferior leads, positive in leads 1 and AVL, because activation of the atrium occurs from superior to inferior and right to left. However, in this ECG, the P waves are inverted in lead 2, 3 and AVF and positive in 1 AVL. So, this is an ectopic atrial rhythm which activates the atria retrogradely from below upwards. This is probably coming from somewhere in the coronary sinus region. Premature supraventricular complexes or atrial premature beats arise again from different regions in the right or left atrium, and the P wave morphology is different from the sinus node. In this ECG, there is sinus rhythm in the left half of the panel, which is extremely regular, but towards the right half of the panel there are 2 beats which come up prematurely before the next expected sinus beat, and there is P wave which is different in morphology from the sinus node P wave. So, these are premature atrial beats. Point to note is the QRS complex is identical to the sinus node P wave. There is no aberrancy occurring in these QRS complexes, and there should be no confusion with premature ventricular complexes. This ECG shows is of a 55-year-old gentleman with paroxysmal palpitations and dizziness. The ECG shows multiple ectopics. In the left half of the panel, there are a couple of ectopic beats followed by sinus rhythm. Then there are premature atrial beat with narrow QRS identical to the sinus rhythm QRS. These are PACs. To the right half of the panel, there are ectopic beats with different QRS morphology. But point to note is the T waves preceding the QRS complex, the ectopic QRS complex, are also deformed. There is probably a P wave inside the T wave or on top of the T wave. The premature atrial beats are giving rise to these ectopic complexes with aberrancy. This ECG is recorded of a 55-year-old gentleman with paroxysmal palpitations and episodes of pre-syncope and dizziness. It shows an irregular rhythm. The left half of the panel shows a couple of ectopic beats followed by sinus rhythm, 2 more ectopic beats followed by a regular rhythm, and again a flurry of ectopic beats with wide QRS. In fact, all the ectopic beats are premature atrial beats. The left half of the panel shows P waves which are occurring earlier than the next expected sinus beat. It deforms the preceding T wave, but the QRS complex which follows the P waves is identical to the sinus rhythm QRS. These are clearly premature atrial beats. The right half of the panel shows wide QRS beats. What is important to notice is there are P waves preceding these wide QRS ectopics, and the P waves are deforming the T waves which precede these. So, the P waves are deforming the preceding T waves. These are premature atrial beat which are conducted with aberrancy. This ECG shows sinus rhythm in the left half of the panel. The sinus rhythm gradually slows down. There is loss of P waves, but at the same time there is a narrow QRS rhythm which picks up. This is an example of slight slowing of the sinus rhythm, sinus bradycardia, but an escape rhythm arising from the junctional region is a little faster than the sinus bradycardia. This is accelerated junctional escape rhythm with isorhythmic AV dissociation. The P waves are almost at the same rate as the junctional rhythm. Tachycardias can occur due to a variety of mechanisms. For clinical purposes, they are divided into narrow QRS tachycardias and wide QRS tachycardias. Narrow QRS tachycardias are those where the QRS is less than 120 milliseconds in width, which is about a 3 millimeter width on a normal 25 millimeters per second ECG recording. Wide QRS tachycardias are those where the QRS inscripted is more than 120 milliseconds in width, more than 3 millimeters on the standard 25 millimeters per second ECG recording. The common cause of narrow QRS tachycardias are supraventricular arrhythmias. This could be either regular or irregular. The common regular narrow QRS tachycardias are AV nodal reentrant tachycardias or accessory pathway mediated AV reentrant tachycardias, atrial tachycardias, sinus node reentrant tachycardias and sinus tachycardia, which are the most common narrow QRS fast rhythms. Irregular narrow QRS tachycardias could be due to atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter or atrial tachycardia. Wide QRS tachycardias could be either due to ventricular arrhythmias or supraventricular tachycardias with aberrancy. Wide QRS tachycardias could be regular, which is seen in monomorphic VT or SVT with aberrancy, or irregular due to atrial fibrillation with or without accessory pathway, with or without aberrancy. It could also occur due to polymorphic ventricular tachycardias. Talking about supraventricular tachycardias, when we look at the ECGs a little more carefully, if the SVT is regular, look at the P wave. If the P waves are not clearly seen, the P waves could be buried inside the QRS complex, and these are most likely AV node reentrant tachycardias. If the P wave is seen and they are of sawtooth pattern, this is likely to be atrial flutter. If P waves are seen and they are present before the QRS, it could be atrial tachycardia. If they are after the QRS, it could be AV reentrant tachycardia, accessory pathway mediated tachycardias. Irregular supraventricular tachycardias are generally atrial fibrillation, which gives rise to irregular rhythm, or atrial flutter with varying AV conduction, or atrial tachycardia with AV Wenckebach and varying AV conduction. Narrow QRS tachycardias, we look at the RP interval, the timing from the QRS peak to the P wave following the R wave. Short RP tachycardias are when the RP interval is shorter than the following PR interval, and long RP tachycardias are those where the RP interval is longer than the following PR interval. Short RP tachycardias could be AV node reentrant tachycardias or AV reentrant tachycardias. In AV nodal reentrant tachycardias, the circuit is small around the AV node region, and the atrial and ventricular activation is near simultaneous. Hence, the P wave which follows the QRS complex is within 60 milliseconds after the R wave. So, the P wave may either be buried inside the QRS or it could be within the first millimeter and a half of the QRS complex, within the first 60 milliseconds after the QRS complex in AV node reentrant tachycardias. Accessory pathway mediated tachycardias or AVRTs are occurring over a larger macro reentrant circuit. The atrial and ventricular activation is spread over a bit of time. The second variety of short RP tachycardias are AVRTs or atrioventricular reentrant tachycardias. These are accessory pathway mediated tachycardias. These are macro reentrant circuits, and the ventricular activation is followed by the atrial activation after a period which is longer than in AV node reentries. So, the P wave is separated from the R wave by a timing which is generally more than 90 milliseconds. Long RP tachycardias are when the RP interval is longer than the following PR intervals. It is generally seen in atrial tachycardia. It could occur in atypical AV node reentries which represent less than 5% of the total AV node reentrant tachycardias, or it could occur in PJRTs, a permanent form of junctional reciprocating tachycardias, generally mediated by accessory pathways which conduct slowly. This cartoon shows the reentrant pathways for AV node reentry. It is present around the AV node region. These are shorter circuits resulting in near simultaneous activation of the atrium and ventricle. Hence, the P wave is buried within the QRS complex, or it falls just after the QRS complex within the first 60 to 70 milliseconds. The second half of the panel shows accessory pathway mediated tachycardias. These are macro reentrant circuits. The activation of the atrium takes place after some time after the ventricular activation. Hence, the P wave is inscribed after the QRS complex, generally more than 90 milliseconds after the QRS complex. This animation shows AV node reentrant tachycardia. The circuit is around the AV node and it shows the near simultaneous activation of the atrium and ventricle. Hence, the P wave is buried within or just after the QRS complex. This is another example of a AV node reentrant tachycardia. The 12 lead ECG shows the P wave in the inferior leads deforming the terminal segment of the QRS, giving rise to a pseudo S wave, and in the V1 electrode it forms a pseudo R wave and RSR prime pattern. In the second half of the panel, the tachycardia has terminated. The pseudo S waves in the inferior leads disappear because the P waves which were occurring after the QRS complex during the tachycardia is now occurring in sinus rhythm before the QRS complex. This picture is a magnified image of the same. The AV node reentry with the pseudo S waves in the inferior leads. Once the tachycardia terminates, the pseudo S waves disappear and sinus rhythm resumes in the latter half of the panel. In atrioventricular reentrant tachycardias, the circuit is larger. This is accessory pathway mediated tachycardia as seen in WPW syndrome or concealed accessory pathway. The impulse goes down the AV node, activates the ventricle, and then comes up the accessory pathway and activates the atrium. This gives rise to orthodromic AVRT. The P waves are inscribed a little after the QRS complex in this type of arrhythmia. This ECG shows orthodromic AVRT in the left half of the panel. The P waves are present after the QRS. Once the tachycardia terminates, the sinus rhythm resumes, but what is also seen is pre-excitation, delta waves causing a widening of the QRS. This is an example of WPW syndrome. This ECG shows a 8-year-old girl with heart failure. There is an underlying tachycardia. The rate is approximately 160 beats per minute. The P waves are unusual in morphology. This is a form of atrial tachycardia. The P waves are not corresponding to the sinus node P wave. After termination of the arrhythmia, the sinus node resumes and sinus beats are seen, followed by resumption of the atrial tachycardia. This is a narrow QRS tachycardia with a long RP phenomenon. The P waves, the RP interval is longer than the following PR interval. The P waves are inferior negative in 2, 3 and AVF. It's a form of supraventricular tachycardia. The mechanism could be ectopic atrial tachycardia, atypical AV node reentrant tachycardia, or PJRT, a permanent junctional reciprocating tachycardia. Ectopic atrial tachycardia could arise either from right or left atria. Consequently, the P wave morphology will depend on the focus where it is arising from. If it is arising from the right atrium, the P waves would be positive in 1 and AVL. If they are arising from the left atrium, the P waves would be negative in 1 and AVL. If it is arising from the lower part of the right atrium, the activation of the atrium occurs from below upwards. Hence, the P waves are negative in the inferior leads in 2, 3 and AVF. So, looking at the P waves morphology, you may be able to determine where the ectopic focus arises. Ectopic atrial tachycardia can give rise to a long RP tachycardia. Atrial tachycardias could arise from more than one focus. In patients with COPD, in patients with myocarditis, there may be chaotic atrial activity and more than 3 P waves more than 3 morphologies of P waves, if seen, it qualifies as a multifocal atrial tachycardia. Certain supraventricular arrhythmias are independent of AV node and its mechanism, and these could be atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation, or atrial tachycardias. Atrial flutter is a macro reentrant circuit where the impulse goes around the tricuspid annulus. In classical atrial flutter, the mechanism, the impulse goes counterclockwise around the tricuspid annulus and goes up the atrial septum. Consequently, the flutter wave pattern is negative in the inferior leads. So, a typical atrial flutter, generally the atrial rate is 300 beats per minute, but the AV conduction is typically 2:1, hence the ventricular rate is approximately 150 beats per minute. So, whenever a supraventricular arrhythmia is seen at a rate of 150 beats per minute, always a differential diagnosis of atrial flutter with 2:1 AV conduction should be considered. This ECG shows atrial flutter with 2:1 AV conduction. The flutter wave are sawtooth wave pattern negative in the inferior leads and positive in lead V1. The AV conduction is 2:1, hence the ventricular rate is 150 beats per minute. This animation shows the impulse going around the tricuspid annulus, activating the annulus in the counterclockwise fashion and activating the interatrial septum from below upwards. Hence, the sawtooth wave patterns, the flutter wave pattern is negative in the inferior leads. This ECG again shows atrial flutter, counterclockwise or classical atrial flutter with 2:1 AV conduction. 60-year-old patient presenting with palpitations and dyspnea, another example of flutter with 2:1 AV conduction. With a long duration of arrhythmia, this type of rhythm can also give rise to tachycardiomyopathy, progressive LV dysfunction and heart failure. Once the ventricular rate is well controlled or the rhythm is restored to sinus rhythm, the LV function may improve and the heart failure symptoms may be reduced. Atrial fibrillation is multiple wavelets which are occurring in the atrium, typically from the left atrium. They could arise also from the pulmonary venous region. There is chaotic atrial activity. This causes a wavering baseline, and the conduction via the AV node into the ventricle is unpredictable and irregular. Hence, whenever a irregular rhythm is seen on the ECG, atrial fibrillation is number one diagnosis. This ECG shows atrial fibrillation with varying AV conduction and variable ventricular rate. An example of 65-year-old lady present with hypertension, presenting with dyspnea. The ECG shows atrial fibrillation and the ventricular rate is fairly well controlled. 78-year-old patient presenting with fatigue and dyspnea with ventricular rate which is slow but regular. In presence of atrial fibrillation, if the ventricular rate is slow and regular, we always have to consider that there may be underlying AV block, and this could be only an escape rhythm coming from the junction or below the junctional region. In presence of a wide irregular arrhythmia, fast, broad and irregular arrhythmia more than 220 beats per minute with irregularly irregular rhythm, this should heighten the diagnosis of atrial fibrillation with possible pre-excitation, underlying WPW syndrome. This is a potentially dangerous rhythm and it could be life threatening, it could cause sudden cardiac arrest. The problem here is the atrial fibrillation, more than 250-300 impulses are generated in the atrium. In an otherwise normal person, the AV node has decremental conduction properties and will not allow the ventricular rate to go faster than 200-250 beats per minute. But in presence of WPW syndrome, accessory pathway which conducts very rapidly antegrade from the atrium to the ventricle, All these impulses will be conducted to the ventricle. The ventricular rate can be extremely fast, and it can also precipitate ventricular fibrillation and cause sudden cardiac death. So, these patients should be treated in an emergency if hemodynamically unstable with DC with defibrillation, and if the patient is hemodynamically stable, IV procainamide or amiodarone may be tried, but a defibrillator should always be standby. This concludes the segment on atrial rhythms and supraventricular arrhythmias. There will be further slides which will give additional information about this talk. Thank you.